Good afternoon. Let's do some business. We are doing it live right here, doing more at 4 weekday afternoons. We get right down to business with the news-driven hour right after Ben Shapiro and just before the 790 KBC News Blitz with Randy Wang at 5. Mottek On Money, live on the air, 790 KBC, streaming live online worldwide at kbc.com. And your on-demand Mottek On Money podcast, kbc.com, Apple, iTunes, and all your favorite podcast platforms. D-Day 2024, 80 years ago. Americans hit the beaches. Today, a big ceremony commemorating the 80th anniversary of D-Day. We'll be talking more about that this hour. The stock market closing mixed today after the European Central Bank cut rates for the first time in 5 years. As investors looked ahead to the monthly jobs report we'll be getting on Friday to help figure out the strength or weakness, as the case may be, of the U.S. economy. The Dow coming in for a closing gain today of just about 80 points. The S&P 500 slipped a point, closing at 5,353, putting it just below the record high achieved yesterday. The NASDAQ composite slipping 15 points, settling at 17,173. It, too, coming off slightly from its all-time high. Wall Street expects to see 190,000 new jobs in the May jobs report, which we'll be getting on Friday. That's slightly up from April. The unemployment rate is expected to hold steady at 3.9%. Of course, the market's been following the moves in the bond market lately moving lower. The Treasury yield's moving lower anyway, finishing lower for a sixth straight session today, producing the longest stretch of declines in long-term rates in more than a year. This on growing concerns about economic weaknesses. The yield in the 10-year note now at 4.28%. The six-day stretch of decline seen as the longest such streak since the 6- and 7-day periods that ended back in early April of 2023. The bond market recession signal, meanwhile, has been flashing since 2022 with no recession so far anyway. The difference between 10- and 2-year Treasury yields has been below zero for more than 480 straight business days. A lot of people, of course, pay close attention to that. That's one of the bond market's most widely followed recession indicators. That's been pointing to the possibility of an economic downturn now for nearly 2 years. Remember, every day last year they were talking about the recession. That never came, officially anyway, but a lot of people are feeling economic pain out there, as we've been talking about extensively. Mortgage rates, meanwhile, have dipped below 7%, according to the latest survey out today from mortgage giant Freddie Mac. The average 30-year fix now 6.99% as of today, according to the Freddie Mac survey, down 4 basis points from the previous week and just below 7% now. A year ago, the 30-year fix was averaging 6.71%. The average 15-year fix now 6.29%, and that is slightly higher from the previous week. Annual D-Day tributes have long provided the U.S. and its allies with an occasion to reflect on the sheer scale of human sacrifice required to roll back the Nazi occupation of Europe during World War II. Thousands of U.S., U.K., and Canadian troops died on the beaches of Normandy on this date in 1944 under a hail of German gunfire. This year, though, transatlantic relations are at an inflection point. As the Wall Street Journal notes, Biden is at odds with many European leaders over his continued support for Israel in the Gaza war. And after 2 years of grinding combat in Ukraine, the U.S. and Europe are still scrambling to increase weapons delivery to Kiev to counter Russian advances. The rise of China as a military power, meanwhile, driving a years-long pivot of U.S. forces toward the Pacific and away from Europe and the Middle East. And with U.S. elections right around the corner, the presumptive Republican candidate Donald Trump is in the spotlight after that unprecedented conviction recently in New York, now on a fundraising tour which will take him to Beverly Hills. Today, President Biden used D-Day commemorations along the windswept beaches of Normandy to warn against the spread of isolationism in the U.S. and to defend decades of transatlantic security ties that are facing new conflicts and rising authoritarianism. Former President Trump, meanwhile, honored the veterans who served in the D-Day invasion 80 years ago in a social media post, saying, "Today we honor the immortal heroes who landed at Normandy 80 years ago. The men of D-Day will live forever in history among the bravest, noblest, and greatest Americans ever to walk the earth. They shed their blood and thousands gave their lives in defense of American freedom. They are in our hearts today and for all time." Joining us live now, the one and only Ben Stein for our occasional Frank and Stein conversation. We do as needed here. Ben Stein, of course, a well-known financial and political commentator, author of numerous books, attorney, economist, and actor, too. Of course, famous in the movie Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and one of the most famous scenes in American cinema where he played the economics professor. And Ben Stein joins us live here with so many epic things to talk about here. Ben, thank you very much for taking the call here this afternoon.
Couldn't be happier to do it. My honor.
D-Day 2024. Give us your reflections, first of all, on this historic day.
Well, I think this is one of the few things Biden has done right. I think he's said, yes, the conservatives and the Republican Party are saying that we're getting involved too deeply in the Ukraine-Russian war. But I think that's the right thing to do. We want to push back Putin. We don't want him to just sail into Western Europe and take it all over or take it all under his influence. He's a killer and a person who we do not want in charge of one of the most important economic blocks in the world. And I'm sad to see that so many of my fellow conservatives in the Republican Party are not, I think, seeing the light on this. Instead, they're saying they are talking about being the new isolationists, and that's not a good thing. It doesn't get us anywhere. It makes us just look weak, and I think, frankly, makes us look stupid. I'm sad to say this because I've never voted for a Democrat, and I doubt it is really time for the Republicans to understand that it should be a bipartisan issue. We want to keep Western Europe and Central Europe as free as they can possibly be.
On the Air Live with Ben Stein. It's been a while since we chatted behind live microphones. Ben Stein, what's your reaction to what happened in New York recently with this trial, which ended with the conviction of former President Trump on these various felonies? And then, of course, want to ask you about the current trial underway of President Biden's son, Hunter Biden. Go right ahead.
The trial of Mr. Trump on these alleged felony counts about moving papers around and paying off what may or may not have been a call girl or may or may not have been a porn star to keep her from talking during the last presidential election. I think that was an outrage. If that kind of thing is allowed to happen, that is to say, if courts and prosecutors are allowed to knock somebody out of the presidential race just on a whim, really, and basically without any precedent for doing it, then the Congress, then the Constitution has been subverted. The Constitution very clearly calls for presidents and vice presidents to be elected by the people, by the voters, and then changed a little bit to the Electoral College. It's not supposed to be decided by courts. And the idea that the Democrats had that they could decide this by just summoning up a grand jury and summoning up a prosecutor, that's against what the Constitution is all about. And they think it's disgraceful that the judge in New York will allow this case to go to trial. I think it's disgraceful that the Democrats running the political show in Manhattan allowed it to go through. It's very, very contemptuous of the Constitution, very contemptuous of the blood and sacrifice that so many Americans made to keep us run by the Constitution instead of by dictators in black robes or dictators in wood-paneled offices as district attorneys or prosecutors.
President Trump's supporters, of course, outraged by what happened there in New York, and now he's on a big campaign swing here in the western part of the United States, which will take him to Beverly Hills ultimately here on Friday, we understand. Will you be attending any of the receptions and so forth and fundraising for President Trump when he's out here? And tell us about those big numbers he's starting to rake in as far as fundraising is concerned.
I'm not invited to any of them as far as I know. I doubt if I would go even if I were invited, because I have a feeling the price of admission is way, way, way out of my league. And even if it were in my league, I don't think it will be. I don't think I want to give it to him. I mean, he's been bragging for so many decades now about how rich he is. I don't see why he should take money from me to to enlarge his war chest. And I frankly, I'm sick of him bragging about how rich he is. I'm sick of the fact that in America, it's a plutocracy now. Plutocracy means a country run by the rich, and now we have become. See it. I don't know who does want to see it. Let's take that off the table if we can, and have people win or lose depending on the strength of their ideas and the strength of their ability to get their plans through Congress. We have some real serious crises. We have a crisis on the borders. America has basically been invaded by over 10 million people who didn't do anything whatsoever to deserve citizenship except walking into some very inhospitable territory. That's not how citizenship is supposed to be granted. That's a terribly, terribly serious matter that people can basically buy their way into being citizens by the tens of millions. I'm very concerned, totally concerned. I don't think Americans are concerned enough about the crime situation. Yes, in some cities, there seems to be some trivial correction in the crime process, but not much. It's still very dangerous. And I look around my beloved L.A., the sense of the universe. When I moved here close to 50 years ago, it was immaculate. This place was immaculate. Frank, you could eat your dinner off the sidewalk. And now it's terrifying, and I don't like it. I don't like the fact that my friends' children and grandchildren can't walk safely to and from school. I don't like the fact that the police themselves are in danger and in fear. I'd like to see a safer Los Angeles, and if Mr. Trump can figure out a way to do that, I'd like to see him do it. Certainly Mr. Biden doesn't seem to want to do it. I think the Democrat Party thinks that the path to the White House runs through the judges' offices, and that if they can kiss the butts of enough criminals and families of criminals, they'll win the next election.
On the Air Live with Ben Stein, and sadly, of course, a lot of people are eating dinner off the sidewalk, not by choice, but because of the tremendous homeless situation we're seeing here in Los Angeles, which is very heartbreaking. While you still have your attorney's hat on, I want to ask you about Hunter Biden, charged with 3 felonies stemming from the purchase of a gun back in October of 2018. The son of the president accused of lying to a federally licensed gun dealer. What's your reaction to that case, and what do you think is going to happen there?
I don't think that case should ever have been brought. I don't think it's a big enough case to have been charging the son of the candidate for president with 3 felony counts. But I think the Democrats have brought it on themselves. They've said, any trivial bunch of nonsense, and we're going to try to get the Republican slammed as hard as possible, keep him out of the White House, even though at least 75 million people want him there. So now he sowed the wind, and now they are reaping the whirlwind. And the whirlwind says, we do not want people who are using the judicial process to bully our politicians. We want people to be elected on the street. Yes, I keep going back to something. My wife and I had the incredible honor many years ago to be there at the Lincoln Memorial when Martin Luther King Jr. said, we want people to be elected and preferred, one might say, based on their character, the strength of their character, and not on the color of their skin. We're now back to judging people on the color of their skin. We're back to judging them on how many people they can get lined up for them in a courthouse or in a grand jury room. We have lost the whole idea of judging people by merit. And this is really a serious matter. Europe is a tinderbox. Europe is a tinderbox in terms of war and peace. Russia's already endlessly threatening the use of nuclear weapons. I don't want people who got their jobs in foreign policy or defense issues to be deciding these matters because they were chosen because they're black enough or white enough or gay enough or not gay enough. I want people to be judged on the strength of their character and their intelligence. On the Air Live with Ben Stein, and it is to be noted, it was under President Reagan that the
The birth date of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was declared a national federal holiday. And it should also be noted it was 20 years ago yesterday that President Reagan departed, and 40 years ago today when he gave that famous speech on the beaches of Normandy for the 40th anniversary of D-Day. We're speaking here on the 80th anniversary of D-Day. Certainly want to honor President Reagan's legacy as we recall these important milestones.
Greatest of great Southern Californians, except for Richard Nixon, who saved the world from nuclear war. And the Yom Kippur War was among the great presidents of all time, and certainly in my mind, the ultimate peacemaker. Ronald Reagan, who built America back up so that we had self-confidence and believed in ourselves and became a model for the whole world. Greatest of the great Southern Californians. I don't think there are enough words to speak highly enough about these two great men.
On there live with Ben Stein, and turning now to the economy, Ben, signs of weakness here. We're getting that big jobs report on Friday. Mercifully, mortgage rates have come down just below 7% now, way above where they had been. Inflation still a concern. We have the Middle East powder keg. Obviously, a lot of nervousness with the oil prices continuing. Give us your, if you can put the economist hat on now, give us your assessment of things here at the moment.
Well, I think it's a real interesting situation in the Middle East. We now have Israel basically still being attacked by the Hamas, who are really horrible, brutal killers. We have them being attacked by Hezbollah coming from the north through Jordan, which, by the way, used to be considered the most cultivated and civilized country in the Middle East. We have a lot of threats coming from the Syrians right across the Golan, close to the Golan Heights. Luckily, thank God, peace with Egypt still seems to be hanging on, but Israel is being pushed into a corner. I don't like what I see. I still think Israel can defend itself, but I don't want Israel to come anywhere near going to the nuclear option to protect itself. I'd like Israel to be able to defend itself with American help for buying. We don't give them arms. We sell them arms. I'd like Israel to be strong enough to defend itself and not rely on American military people with boots on the ground, as the saying goes. Let's not sneer at Israel's efforts to protect itself. Hamas did one of the worst war crimes in the history of mankind, a mass rape, which basically, if you look at the numbers, was aimed almost entirely at women. The Hamas has some obsession with raping and killing women. It's a fascinating thing. I really don't understand it. Maybe somebody at some point could write something about it, but the Hamas and the Hezbollah really like to rape and kill Jewish women. What's the obsession going on there? And this has been going on for some time. I'd like to see America stand up and say, we're going for women's rights in America. We want to break the glass ceiling in America. We'd like to see a woman president. We'd like to see women at the top rank of corporate jobs in America. Why then are we helping this evil group of thugs and killers who want to make their way in the world by trails of rape and blood?
Last but not least, before we let you off the hook, I want to get your reaction to the Russian leader Putin reaffirming his readiness to use nuclear weapons if threatened. I don't know if you saw the latest reports, and Russian naval ships, including a nuclear-powered submarine, sent to visit Cuba. Russian warships, including a missile frigate, will arrive in Cuba next week, and tensions rising. Russian warships heading to the Caribbean for drills. Give us your reaction to these latest reports.
The Russians have been threatening Western Europe and the United States with nuclear weapons ever since the first day they crossed the border into Ukraine, and I hope and pray that they are not serious about doing it. I think what we're seeing with Mr. Putin is his extraordinary nervousness and skittishness about his ability to control his own people. To me, and this is just to me, I could easily be wrong, it looks to me like he is saying, I'm going to whip up the Russian people to a frenzy by claiming that NATO is the equivalent of Nazism and is getting ready to attack Russia. That's obvious nonsense. I mean, NATO is not in any sense to be compared with Nazi Germany, but Putin has to use something to get people jacked up, and that, to me, shows Putin thinks he is not as secure as we in the West may think he is.
Ben Stein, thank you very much for that comprehensive call this afternoon for our Frank and Stein conversation, which we do as needed here, and it was certainly needed today. Ben Stein, thank you very much for joining us live here this afternoon.
God bless you, and God bless America.
Well said. Thank you very much, Ben Stein. And right out to the freeways now on 790 KBC. Can you believe it? Summer's coming. The days are long. Weather is warm, and swarms of tourists crowd our streets and freeways, and the pace may be slower, but the traffic, as you probably noticed, is heavier. You might be traveling, but with travel, you're driving at an unfamiliar place, and while you're having fun in paradise, accidents unfortunately can happen. Now, if you've been hurt in an accident at home or away from home, don't let it ruin your trip or your summer. Call the compassionate team at Fielding Law Firm. Clark Fielding understands the disruption and frustration that comes with being injured in an accident that was not your fault. Clark Fielding is dedicated to getting you the justice and compensation you deserve. Whether it's a car accident, slip, trip, fall, dog bite, any kind of personal injury, Fielding Law is here to fight for you. Clark Fielding and his team of legal sharks at Fielding Law will help carry the burden so you can focus on recovering. You'll be treated like family. Fielding Law is a local firm that is familiar with the freeways and troubled spots out there. Clark Fielding lives right here, too. Don't let summer be overshadowed by an accident. Call Fielding Law Firm today for a free consultation so you can focus on getting back to enjoying life under the sun. 833-88-SHARK's the number. 833-88-SHARK. Your path to brighter days ahead. ClarkTheSharkLaw.com. 790 KBC welcomes Yachtly Crew, the nation's #1 yacht rock band, coming to the Bank of America Performing Arts Center November 9th. Tickets are on sale Friday at Ticketmaster.com, and right now, caller 9 wins at 1-888-795-2222. You can get a pair of tickets to the show if you are caller number 9. The tickets furnished by Nederlander Concerts. Call right now. Caller 9 wins, 1-888-795-2222. Mottek On Money continues here, 790 KBC. Mixed finish for the day on Wall Street. The Dow coming in for a closing gain of 79 points at 38,886. The S&P 500, which started the day at a record high, pulling back 1 point at 5,353. And the NASDAQ, which also started today at a record high, pulling back 15 at the close, selling at 17,173. The yield on the 10-year note is eased to 4.29%. Fixed-rate mortgage rates have also eased a bit this week, with the 30-year fixed average now just below 7% at 6.99%, according to the survey released today from mortgage giant Freddie Mac. Taking a look at the cryptos now, Bitcoin up about 400 at 70,800. Ethereum up 13 at 3,811, and Doge at 16 cents. NVIDIA coming off its record high today, down about $14 to $1,209.98 a share. And now the latest news on 790 KBC. Mottek On Money continues here in 790 KBC. Let's focus on the magnificent one, shall we? That is NVIDIA. NVIDIA stock hit another record high yesterday, pulling back today by about $14 off its all-time high at $1,209.98 a share. NVIDIA knocked Apple off to become the second largest U.S. company this week by market cap, but the two are looked like they're swapped places again today. Not only are investors having to wait to see if NVIDIA will topple Microsoft now, but NVIDIA will have to get past Apple again if it tries to become the largest U.S. company by market cap. And looks like they are trying after a milestone trading session yesterday in which NVIDIA crossed the $3 trillion market cap threshold. NVIDIA shares did open higher, and they since turned around today, and looks like they're down to around $2.93 trillion market cap at this point. Shares of Microsoft, according to MarketWatch, currently the most valuable U.S. company by market cap, moved lower. The company's on track to finish at $3.14 trillion in valuation. Apple's market cap $2.99 trillion at the close today. Apple stock, by the way, closed down $1.39 at $194.48. And tomorrow is a big day for NVIDIA. NVIDIA will complete its 10-for-1 stock split after the market closes tomorrow, June 7th. Shares will begin trading on a split-adjusted basis starting June 10th. NVIDIA has completed 5 other stock splits since its IPO in 1999, and shares have typically declined sharply during the next year, according to the Motley Fool. Now, the company dominates the market for artificial intelligence chips. We're talking about NVIDIA. The stock currently trades at a discount to its historical PE ratio. NVIDIA completing its 10-for-1 stock split after the market closed tomorrow, and that split coming, by the way, on the heels of tremendous price appreciation. As we've been talking about, NVIDIA returned 205% during the past year and nearly 600% during the past 3 years, with enthusiasm about AI being the primary reason for those gains. And in fact, remember late last year, NVIDIA led that AI rally, leading that tremendous rebound we saw in the NASDAQ and bringing the other Magnificent Seven stocks along with it. Shareholders will get 9 additional shares for each share they own when this stock split is completed. The stock will begin trading on a split-adjusted basis on Monday, June 10th, and the split will not impact the value of the company, as we've noted here, nor will it change investors' stake in the company. We've been asking our guests this question: what happens following the stock split? Well, there's no way to know for sure as far as the direction of the stock, but we can certainly guess by examining NVIDIA's performance following past stock splits. And people talking to the Motley Fool have made some predictions that they put up on their website. NVIDIA stock declined by an average of 23% during the 12-month period following past stock splits, and the stock was still down by an average of 3% after 2 years. In other words, history says NVIDIA is headed for a steep, prolonged drawdown. But there's a major asterisk to that statement. According to the Motley Fool, 4 of the past 5 stock splits occurred in close proximity to a recession. Specifically, the U.S. economy was in a recession from March of 2001 through November of 2001, and from December of 2007 through June of 2009. Those economic downturns precipitated bear markets that had devastating consequences for the stock market, so NVIDIA was naturally dragged down along with the overall market. Shares initially declined. Investors have still done exceptionally well if they purchased shares when any of the previous stock splits took place, according to the Motley Fool. So we're keeping a close watch, of course, on NVIDIA, the so-called Magnificent One, which has led the AI tech rally. The stock is just below its all-time high, down about $14 today at $1,209.98 a share. Let's take a closer look now at the cryptos here, which, of course, have seen a wild ride and rebounded again recently, as we've seen. We've seen Bitcoin back above 70,000 after that drawdown recently. Let's bring up the latest here right now on where Bitcoin stands. Right now up about $300 at $70,785. Ethereum up 11 at $3,809 per Ethereum. And Doge, which is fun to quote here, we keep an eye on Dogecoin. The Dogecoin price holding steady today at 16 cents. According to Coinpedia, let's talk about Doge here. Well, in times, they say, when the meme coins are gaining huge attention, the biggest meme coin, Dogecoin, continues to trade within a range-bound range. The 24-hour trading volume, they note, has dropped below 1 billion, suggesting a shift in momentum away from the token, as Pepe is currently the largest traded meme coin, by the way. However, the market dynamics for the Doge price are believed to change soon as the token is close to the end of the accumulation phase. You've got to get the crypto dictionary out to understand some of the way this coverage goes, but they note historically the activity of the whales has been impacting the token's price in the long term. Wherever the accumulation rises, the probability of a strong ascending trend also rises, but a drop may certainly not indicate a bearish trend for Doge. In a recent posting shared by a popular analyst, Dogecoin whales have resumed accumulating the token. So we're keeping an eye on Dogecoin and Shiba Inu, of course. Doge is symbolized by a Shiba Inu, and then, of course, you have the Shiba Inu coin as well, or meme coin. So we keep an eye on all of that as well. If you just joined us, the Dow came in for a closing gain today of 79 points at 38,886. The S&P 500 coming off its all-time high, down 1 point at 5,353, and the NASDAQ closed down 15 points off its record high at 17,173, and the yield in the 10-year note at 4.29%. Now let's get the latest on your ride this afternoon here on 790 KBC. Mottek On Money continues here on 790 KBC. Speaking of rich man's world, SpaceX launching the 4th test flight of its Starship today, marking another milestone for the private space company's giant spacecraft and rocket, Starship reaching space and for the first time completed a soft splashdown in the Indian Ocean to the joy of Elon Musk, who runs SpaceX, as well as Tesla. Is Elon Musk leaving Tesla? Well, according to one headline, Tesla CEO Elon Musk could leave if his $56 billion pay package is not approved. Shareholders are warning of that possibility. Let's talk about all things cars and EVs now with our go-to car expert, and that, of course, Lauren Fix, editor-in-chief of Car Coach and co-host of the Total Car Score podcast. Lauren, thank you very much for coming to the line this afternoon.
Oh, it's always a pleasure, Frank. Thanks for having me back.
Fantastic to have you with us here. Let's talk about Tesla and EVs overall. A lot of them are sitting on the lot these days. Give us an update on what's really happening out there.
Well, I think that the big demand for electric cars has sort of dropped off. People that were early adapters, that were into the tech and wanted to try something new, they bought those cars, and they're on their second and third electric vehicle. But about 50% of those, actually a little more than 50%, have decided not to return to electric cars and are looking at hybrids and plug-in hybrids because it doesn't force them to have to wait at a charging station, and it gives you a lot more flexibility, especially if you want to go on a road trip. And those are the numbers that we're seeing based on the cars that are sitting on lots around the country.
On there live with Lauren Fix, and have you been to Beverly Hills lately? But a lot of Cybertrucks, especially in Beverly Hills these days. We see the silver one, the black one, a blue one, and all kinds of color schemes now too. And some of them are coated with advertising, getting a lot of attention. Real head turners. What are your thoughts on the Cybertruck, which hit the road just a few months ago?
Well, we saw the Cybertruck. It's almost like a tinker toy. There's a lot of things about it that makes me wonder how it cleared National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Department of Transportation. It's a very blunt front end, and all the other brands have been forced to think about pedestrian traffic, people and people on bikes. And if you get hit by that, it's going to be probably fatal. And typically with all the other car brands, they require a softer front end, more rounded, not sharp edges that are enough to hurt you. And people have been hurt by it already, but not in crosswalks, just, touching the sharp edges. It does have a lot of uniqueness to it, and sales have not been great. Still, the Model 3 is the number one product for Tesla. And they've got a lot of challenges on a global basis where China's BYD is really beating them in almost every single country, including Israel, where they're selling vehicles less than $30,000, and they have a truck as well. And their truck doesn't look like a tinker toy. It actually is a functional truck. So they got a lot of competition, and I'm starting to wonder if he does get that very large salary bonus, will he leave the company? Would he sell the company? But right now, he's still number one in the electric car industry. They own about 60% of the electric car sales. But as far as other brands, they're starting to turn tail a little bit. Jaguar had the I-Pace, which was a beautiful car, but they have 400 days of inventory sitting on the lot. That's over a year. And they're planning on going all EV, so they're going to stop making the I-Pace and come up with some new vehicles. But in the meantime, every brand is struggling, and you're watching them all sort of saying, you know what, we're going to start offering hybrid. The only exception that's not is General Motors, which I just drove the Silverado RST, which is their pickup truck, which has the Ultium battery, which I was pretty impressed with. It was better than the Ford Lightning truck as far as for distance and range. And one of the things they said is they want to coexist. So they want to have electric vehicles as well as gasoline or diesel on the truck. And the reason they're going to do that versus hybrid is they're going to let people make their choices, which is what they should have done from the beginning.
On there live with Lauren Fix, getting back to Elon Musk's pay package. If he doesn't get $56 billion, that pay package that's on the table there, the shareholders, by the way, will be deciding this on June 13th, coming up here pretty soon, deciding the fate of Musk's compensation package, estimated to be worth $56 billion. If he doesn't get it, do you think he'll walk?
$56 billion is a lot of money, but you know what? Elon Musk's followers and buyers are true enthusiasts of him and his brand, whether you personally like him or not, or what he does or not. They are true followers like a Pied Piper. They'll probably give him his gigantic pay package, and if he says he's not going to get it and he's going to quit or leave or sell the company, I highly doubt that. First off, you have to find a buyer in this current economy. I don't see any buyers jumping on board. What the technology he has, other brands like Genesis, which is Hyundai, even Ford and GM have done a different perspective on making cars better for consumers. So at some point, they're going to take a bigger chunk of the market. So at some point, maybe he will sell the company to someone, the Saudis or somebody.
Very interesting. June 13th will be a big day for that, so we'll be watching that very closely. I don't know if you heard the latest crash safety test of SUVs came out in the last day or so, and it looks like some of the biggest vehicles are, as it turns out, not the safest. You mentioned the Cybertruck. I'm not sure that one was tested, but they did take a look at the big ones, Chevy Tahoe, Ford Expedition, by the way, failing to qualify for the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety's Top Safety Picks Award. What are your impressions about these big cars, these big SUVs and safety?
Well, I think we always think a bigger vehicle is a safer vehicle. It should be, because there's more metal and ways to protect your family, but airbags are the most important. You want airbags, everyone to wear their seatbelts and all these safety features. And sometimes you have to buy up on those packages. And so like Toyota and Honda, they're fully packaging in all of their safety. Other brands like Mercedes-Benz, you have to buy up for a higher package. So I think that's, people buy cars thinking that all the safety is included. But one of the things you should do if you're thinking about a new vehicle or even a used one, go to the National Highway Traffic Safety website, which is safercar.gov. They have rankings both on the child safety seats, they have them on the cars, and then IIHS, which does offset crash testing as well. But always try to get a top safety pick plus or a 5-star crash rated vehicle. There are a lot of them that do have it, but a lot of them have lower numbers than you expect. So don't assume size will give you safety.
Very, very important point. And getting back to EVs for just a moment, isn't Mercedes also going into reverse on its EV plans as Mercedes buyers want the good old gas-powered vehicles, right?
Right. Mercedes-Benz is one of the brands that have said, we're still going to offer our, EQE, but they realize that the sales aren't there, and they have quite a few vehicles sitting on their lots as well, about 170 days worth. And that's a problem because you want cars to go to the dealer lots and be sold pretty quick, usually, 30, 60-day rotations. In this case, they've realized that they're going to offer hybrids, they're going to offer gas, and in Europe, they offer diesel as well as something we don't have here, which I wish we did. It's called hybrid diesel, and it gets 70 miles to the gallon. And I think at some point we might see that come here because that would be a really great solution, giving everybody the best of both worlds.
Terrific, Lauren. Thank you very much for taking all the questions on all things cars. As always, Lauren Fix, editor-in-chief of Car Coach, co-host of the Total Car Score podcast, and great contributor here on Mottek On Money on 790 KBC. Coming up next, stay tuned for the 790 KBC News Blitz with Randy Wang, and I'll be back with more at 4 tomorrow afternoon right here. Mottek On Money, 790 KBC.
For the real story behind some of wrestling's biggest moments, it's Something to Wrestle with Bruce Pritchard and Conrad Thompson, too.
We got to talk about the crowd in France.
At one point, they sent out an emergency to everyone's phones stating that the decibel level was dangerously high. A few surprises, like singing Randy Orton's song. I was like, there are words to this song?
Something to Wrestle, wherever you listen.